This is a roughly 80-year-old pan that I use almost every single day. I once warned my lady not to ever make me choose between her and this pan. I love this skillet. I also love all of these, but this is my favorite iron child. I'm filming a video here, Takeshi. Have you no respect? Don't get me wrong, I love stainless steel and carbon steel as well, but cast iron is my joy. But there is a hidden danger to this cookware. Bit of a random niche topic today, but what else is new for this channel? I'm not alone though in my love for cast iron. 627,000 other Redditors gather to chat about cast iron, compared to just 78,000 for carbon steel and 7,000 for stainless steel. And I couldn't even find a community for non-stick pans, probably because non-stick pan users are all too tired from all the toxins leached into their bloodstreams by their poison pan. Sorry, I'm here to talk about my love for cast iron, not to trash talk other pan materials. So let's talk about why cast iron is amazing. First, it's tough and it's reasonably indestructible. I'm not gonna bust rocks apart with this thing or anything like that, but under normal to tough, hard use in a kitchen, they're still going to last forever. Your grandchildren's grandchildren will inherit your cast iron pan from you if you don't lose it somewhere along the way, and they will be able to cook with it just as you're cooking with it today. Even a neglected and rusty one that you find buried in a mine shaft somewhere can usually be fully restored at home. Respect your father. I'm making a video. They are extremely versatile. You can pan fry, saute, roast, bake, put it in the oven, on the stove, or on top of a campfire out in the woods. They have a rich history. Starting in 6th century China, people began making cookware out of cast iron, and the process has barely changed since. We use a sand mold and pour molten iron into it, and then once the iron has cooled and solidified, we break it out of the mold and it emerges in one piece, yielding a simple and elegant design. Nothing to attach, nothing to weld, nothing to bolt on. It's all one single piece, which is iconic looking. The cast iron skillet is a symbol of the common people exploring and venturing off into the unknown, always able to rely on their trusty cast iron skillet to roast something over the campfire or bop a grizzly bear over the head if it gets too aggressive, or just bake a nice loaf of cornbread. By seasoning your pan over time, you can create a naturally non-stick coating that does not leach toxins into your food. And as long as you're following some basic guidelines, they actually get better and better with time as you add to that coating of seasoning. And because they're so durable, they are often passed down from generation to generation, gathering sentimentality over time. And lastly, and most importantly, they do require a little bit of specialized knowledge in order to care for and maintain. And it's really not that hard, I promise. I know you want it to be easy, and it is once you learn the basics. If you have a pan that's been neglected or is covered in rust or has been buried in that mine shaft, then yeah, it's going to take a little bit more effort and knowledge and time to restore that pan. But once it is restored, it's fairly easy to care for as long as you know what to do. As far as using it goes, you just want to avoid boiling liquids, especially acidic liquids like tomato sauce in the pan. Aside from that, you get it hot, you add some oil, you add some food, you cook it, and you eat it. To clean, let it cool a bit, then scrub it out with water and a soft sponge. Well, dish soap is fine to use, but it's optional. If there's anything stuck on, you can use a chainmail scrubber or a hard plastic scraper to get that crud off the surface. Dry the pan immediately to avoid rust. Long exposure to water is iron's enemy, okay? Never soak it. After it's dry, you put a little oil in the pan and you wipe it down with a cloth. Then you lovingly admire the pan and kiss it goodnight. This is not difficult to do, but admittedly it is more than something like stainless steel requires. But this isn't a bad thing. In fact, I think it's the reason why so many people love cast iron, because caring for something or someone creates love. It's like with your human baby. The more you care for it, the more you feed him or her, the more you change him and see him laugh and see him start to explore the world, see her learning her first word, the more you love her. The more effort you put in, the more you love that child. And the same process happens with cast iron. You put that care into it and it gives back by feeding you every day, by creating delicious meals and being a joy to polish up and see it shine. You can just watch that little pan mature into iron adulthood and become something great and something beautiful. And that is the hidden danger of cast iron, is that it's a little bit too lovable. It breeds obsession. And if you get into cast iron, you can start with one pan and then you polish it up and you fix it and you're starting to cook with it, and then you see another one at the thrift store or online and you think, man, it would be nice to have another one. I could bake 2 loaves of cornbread at the same time, or I could have a different size. And then it becomes one more, and then you're one of these posts on Reddit with a van or a shed full of cast iron pans that you have yet to restore or use or give away. Many people, once they get started in cast iron, just don't know when to stop. And I think my collection is reasonably sized, and I use every one of these pans, except this one, but I inherited this one. I don't know what to do with it, it's so small. I'll probably use it someday. But a lot of people don't know when to stop, and they end up with their house overflowing with cast iron that they'll never use, they'll probably never restore. So if you get into the cast iron game, just be cautious about how deep you end up going. Both stainless steel and carbon steel share a lot of the same properties. Just like cast iron, if you treat them right, there's no reason they can't last pretty much forever. Stainless steel is arguably more versatile, as it's perfectly good for boiling up some tomato sauce or other liquids. Carbon steel transfers heat more quickly, and you can gather a patina and add seasoning over time, just as you can with cast iron. So why do people tend to love cast iron more than either of these types of pans? I don't know. I have my educated guesses. Cast iron is easier to cook in because of its higher heat retention due to its thick walls, and it has that natural non-stick coating that stainless steel doesn't have. It's also a lot more affordable and has a longer history than either other material. Carbon steel isn't quite as durable as cast iron, and stainless steel, you don't have that gradual development of love that you get from caring for your pan like you do with cast iron. Son, I'm making a video. This is serious business. But ultimately, the simple fact is that cast iron is king in the nerdy pan people space, and I don't see that changing. Before you rush out and get your first cast iron pan, there is one very important quality of cast iron that you need to be aware of. Vintage pans, like this Wagner Sydney skillet here, tend to be smooth. They were polished after the casting process, so they have a smooth interior. A lot of modern pans, especially the most common brand here in the US, Lodge, are rough. They have this rough interior that comes from the casting process. There's no polishing that happens after the casting. And the divide between whether rough or smooth is better is probably the single most controversial issue in all of cast iron. The roughies in that conflict will defend the modern process, saying that the rough texture of modern iron retains the seasoning better than the vintage pans and the polished texture of iron. I'm a smoothie, and I say that's BS. Rough pans are fine, I guess, they work fine, but these pans, they retain seasoning just as well, they're easier to clean, and they're just a lot more pleasant to use. I mean, listen to this. Rough. Smooth. You cook in these things every day, the sound and the feel makes a difference, trust me. If you do have any inclination for home cooking, I do strongly recommend you go get yourself a cast iron. If you choose rough, I will still accept you as my cast iron brother or sister. You'll just be that brother or sister I don't want to hang out with very much. If you decide to go smooth, here are your options. You can get relatively cheap, smooth Chinese iron There have been rumors for years that some Asian iron cookware has suspect metals or materials in it, but I don't know that there's ever been any evidence for this. I personally don't have much experience with Chinese iron. It may be great, or it may have downsides that I'm not aware of. If you check it out, comment down below, let me know what you think. You can go for expensive modern American cast iron like Yeti or Burrow furnace. Or you can buy vintage, which is probably going to run you about the same amount as a cheap modern Chinese pan. You might have to do some refinishing of your own to restore these vintage pans to their former glory. But if you're willing to spend in some extra time and some extra effort in order to do that process using either a lye bath or electrolysis, I use lye, to strip the pan of all its old seasoning and buildup, and then re-season it by applying thin coats of oil and baking the pan at high heat several times, then these vintage pans will serve you well for the rest of your life and your children's lives and your grandchildren's lives. I have Wagner Sydney pans. Other good brands from the past are Griswold, Erie, and many others, but those are the most common. There is also a hidden DIY fourth option here, which is to purchase a rough pan like a Lodge, which is very affordable, and then sand or polish it yourself. Until next time, we are born of iron, and to iron we shall return.